If you were the victim of a crime, there were no police. You just had to scream loudly to raise a hue and a cry and hope for the best.
Help! Help!
He's trying to rob me. Help! These lips is horrible.
Many people look at the Middle Ages through romantic eyes. They think about armored knights on lumbering steeds, beautiful damsels in pointy hats, dragons, chivalry, and courtly love.
Why
Nothing
you wouldn't
could be
last
further
24
from the
hours in
truth.
the Dark Ages?
For most people, the Middle Ages were dirty, difficult, and really quite dangerous. Let's find out now why it was unlikely that you could stay alive and
Hold on,
prosper,
this shit too fast. Hold on. I can't keep up.
and why you were likely to die quite quickly during that time.
And I'm gonna be honest. I know this is gonna sound crazy. Slavery, Middle Ages, World War III. I'm surviving all. World War II. I'm surviving all of that.
Welcome to Medieval Madness.
No, you're not, Dior. Yes, I am. I'm surviving all of that.
Communication, or the lack of it. Let's just suppose you suddenly arrived in medieval England, that there was some sort of time slip and now you were stranded in the middle of the 14th century. The first thing you would realize is that you wouldn't understand a damn thing anybody was saying.
Cap. Well, I don't need to understand what niggas say because they're gonna be like, wow, what is this new like language? I'm gonna be good. He think just because niggas gonna hear me talk like that I'm not gonna be able to stop niggas with spears on horses. No, I'm straight.
The ordinary people spoke Middle English, the posh people spoke French, and
Bands,
the
I'm not
clergy
gonna
spoke
say
Church
that.
Latin. Speaking only modern English,
With
you
your weak ass stomach, you gonna get a stomach virus in the Middle Ages and fucking die.
might be able to understand the odd word, but an intelligible conversation with anybody is impossible at this point.
They're gonna see me as a lord.
A woman's worth. So now supposing you had picked up a little bit of the language, but you were unlucky enough to be a woman, then you would know all about hardship.
Well, then
Because
I'm
of the
already
importance
good.
placed on biblical texts, medieval women were usually regarded as morally weak, meaning they were oppressed and treated as subservient.
I'm already knowing they was doing women dirt back then. Ooh, I know they was doing women dirt back then. I'm already knowing they was doing y'all dirt back then. I can't lie.
In particular, the writings of St. Paul highlighted men's authority over women and their need to stay silent in church
Kendrick would
and
love
under
it.
the control of their husbands. For the peasant woman, work was gendered and she was responsible for the household chores. Not only spinning, brewing, cooking, weaving, and taking care of livestock and children, but also sharing the labor of the farm and fieldwork with the men.
Damn!
Women were expected to marry or become a nun. It is the first option that awaited the majority of women. Marriage meant pregnancy, and that meant childbirth. There was no modern pain relief or sterile hospital
Ooh!
setting. Complications that we now consider to be inconsequential.
Witch, and she get witch. She's a witch, and then the whole town rally up. That's different.
Could prove fatal for the medieval mother and child. Having
Give
money
me
and
none.
status didn't guarantee a safe birth, and a caesarean section was only performed if the mother was dying or already dead.
Shit.
In 1420s Florence, for example, 1 in 5 women died during labor. Death during childbirth was so prevalent that women were urged to write out a last will and testament long before
Damn!
giving birth.
But I
which
mean,
kind of
wait.
takes the shine off what
that's tough. But they also just didn't have the technology though, right? Not even right, but they just didn't have the technological advance.
should have been a joyous event. Early life, early death. Today, we consider the death of a child to be rare or unexpected, but if you were born in the Middle Ages, you would be lucky to make it even past your 5th birthday, as the child mortality rate was so high, and 1/3 of children died before that age in medieval England.
Damn!
And the dangers would start whilst you were still in the womb. Unaware of the risks of alcohol-fetal syndrome, medieval women would have been blissfully knocking back huge quantities of ale or wine.
Because they was drinking heavy back then. They didn't have the science yet. Oh,
throughout
okay.
their pregnancies. And don't get me started on their nutrition. The death of a child is one of the most awful tragedies that anyone can imagine. In medieval Europe, the mortality rate was thought to lie somewhere between 20 to 30% dying under the age of 7, depending on the year. That's children dying from incidents during birth, accidents, or because of war or famine and disease.
War or famine. Nigga, we ain't gotta worry about war or famine now these days.
Deadly illnesses included whooping cough.
Dying in war as an innocent bystander is kind of crazy. They breath stunk bad. Everything about these niggas stunk bad back then. But I'll say war, like you in your apartment. Imagine if you in your apartment now and war struck on your street. Bombs, boom, blowing up all types of shit. Different.
Measles, influenza, and stomach infections, sicknesses that can
Who don't
be
gotta worry
treated
about war?
to death.
Nigga, you ain't got in your New York apartment, nigga, you ain't gotta worry. New York 3x3 apartment, nigga. You ain't gotta worry about war, nigga. You worried about watching anime and shit, boy. New York ass nigga, rat food eating ass nigga, gas station food eating ass nigga, train station ass nigga. Yeah, man, Clay, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
Day. And the grief was the same for parents living thousands of miles away. In medieval Japan, 48% of the population died as children. 48% is practically 1 in every 2 children dying.
dude.
Who are you calling a
about
peasant?
crackheads? They weren't invented
The
back
problem
then.
with living in the Middle Ages was that 85% of the population were serfs, so you would have been more likely to be part of that group than not. Tied to the Lord and his
85% of the population was what? Slaves?
and not only would you have to grow food to
You
sustain
going to war with the roaches in your crib every day. Every time I walk in the house, I'm scared I'm gonna be greeted by a roach. Yeah, but that's not my fault. That's fucking Gavin's fault. I told y'all, right? Gavin did 2 things recently that's been pissing me off, bro. Did 2 fucking things that pissed me off, bro. 2 things. This nigga was smoking a fucking puff bar. I said, dude, fuck is wrong with you? Smoking a puff bar, nigga? You know what I'm saying? I said, only reason why I don't smack you in your head is because you a grown man, dude. I'm gonna respect that just because you a grown man. I almost slapped your stupid ass for smoking a puff bar, little nigga. Throw that shit away. I don't have no puff bar in my house, nigga. Basically, send his bitch back to that.
yourself and your family, but you would also have to make sure that there was enough to pay the Lord his due too. You couldn't leave the land without your Lord's permission or even get married. You may as well have been a slave.
You couldn't leave the land without what?
You couldn't leave the land without your Lord's permission or even get married. You may
Damn, nigga.
as well have been a slave. You would have been always reliant on the weather. Too much rain or not enough could be a catastrophe and cause the failure of crops, which led to malnutrition and, in the worst cases, starvation. Malnutrition meant a weakened immune system, and that led to an upturn in diseases like dysentery, typhus, and smallpox. Food, when it was available, consisted
My slaves are gonna love me. I'm not being a slave. That's what I'm saying, Kinkos.
of coarse bread made with barley, oats,
I'm
rye,
killing the owner in his sleep. He gonna wake up to 5 of us beating his ass, hitting up with socks filled with soap and shit.
or millet, and a thin stew known as pottage. Medieval Europe was teeming with wild game like rabbit, hare, deer, and boar, but these were for the nobility to hunt, not for the lower classes, and the penalty for poaching was usually pretty harsh. Clothing wasn't the comfiest, being made from itchy wool.
You know, we be talking about like, oh man, GMOs, you know what I'm saying, making fake food and shit. I mean, shit, bro. These niggas back here, these niggas was out here fucking starving every day, nigga. At least we got fake food to eat. Game is game.
Houses weren't exactly palatial either. Most had
Facts,
just one
wild
room
man.
or 2 rooms with no chimney and perhaps 1 or 2 small windows. They were dark, smoky, smelly, and unsanitary because they were often shared with animals, especially in the winter when conditions outdoors were harsh. With no central heating, lighting, or running water, is it any wonder that medieval lives were so short? The average life expectancy for most men in the 140 years between 1330 and 1479 was just 24 years. Women came out better with an average of 33 years, but still not
You
great.
keep pausing.
The justice system. Medieval crime and their punishments were really different from today as well, because the church controlled just about every aspect of life, from
shit.
what you wore to what you could eat and when. So no nipping out to McDonald's in your long pointy shoes on a Sunday morning for your McMuffin breakfast. If you were the victim of a crime, there were no police. You just had to scream loudly to raise a hue and a cry and hope for the best.
Help! I'm sorry, basement. Help! He's trying to rob me. Help! These lips is horrible.
For serious crimes, death was the punishment, and these didn't just include murder or treason. Forgery, arson, receiving stolen goods, robbery, and burglary were all punishable by hanging.
Oh
In
my
fact,
god. So run that back.
Forgery, arson, receiving stolen goods, robbery, and burglary were all punishable by hanging.
Damn.
In fact, stealing anything worth over 12 pence, the equivalent of about 3 weeks' wages, meant a trip to the gibbet. Early in the period, trial by ordeal was a thing. Here, the guilt or innocence of the accused was determined by subjecting the suspect to a painful and often deadly experience, such as walking over red-hot coals or plunging your hand into boiling water or oil.
Oh man.
If you were innocent, God would perform a miracle and save you. Petty crimes like being in
If you were innocent, God would perform a miracle and save you.
debt, gambling, playing football, or using abusive language in the street were also dealt with quite harshly, with punishments ranging
Playing
from
football?
public humiliation in the stocks or pillory to branding or imprisonment. Many people died in prison because of the unsanitary conditions and lack of
and they
decent food. Most crime was linked to theft because of poverty, so there was a lot of it about.
Damn. I don't know if I actually would survive that bitch. I ain't gonna lie, because if they catch me, I'm fucked.
War, what it isn't good for. The list of wars throughout the world during the 1,000-year period of the Middle Ages is insane. In total, there were over 370 wars across many empires, with the last one, the Italian War, finishing in 1504. Many were fought to see which incompetent was going to sit on the throne next as king or queen, and others were contested for what
War
were thought
back
to be
then
noble
was
reasons, such as the
different.
Crusade.
2 niggas on one side of a hill. Them niggas start yelling charge and shit. Charge! Now you got 500 niggas all running back into each other. That's different. That's real life. Like, that's real. That's barbaric.
But
Notice
then,
how we
as
haven't
was
seen
the
any
case, was
black
the common
people in these
who were left
images.
to pay the ultimate price. As a serf, and because of the European feudal system, if you lived in the kingdom of one of 2 rich people who wanted to have a go at each other, then you would be obligated to fight. Peasants had to supply military service to their liege lord on a regular basis. Men were only sent away for short periods of time, so if you were lucky enough not to die in the first 40 days, you could return home. This was because if everyone went off to war at the same time, then there would be no one to take care of the nobles. No labor meant no crops and no money for all the wealthy people to spend on silly wars.
Damn.
The result was a medieval military that was for the most part disorganized, resulting in a lot of dead people.
They're just like, fuck
and the noblemen didn't evade death either. Around 30% of them died in one skirmish or another. As for the commoners, no one really knows the victim numbers. They were thought to be so insignificant that nobody ever kept a tally.
Damn! Nigga, you just a regular townsman. Getting caught up in a city war and shit?
Estimates the casualties from medieval wars, both soldiers and the innocent bystanders caught up in the conflict. During the First Crusade at the Siege of Jerusalem, 90,000 people died. In all, during the Crusade years from 1095 until the end of the 13th century, there were between 1 to 3 million deaths. The 100 Years' War, fought between 1337 and 1453, produced between 2 and 3.
Horses had all that ass back there?
0.5 million fatalities. And in Asia, the Mongol invasions and conquests that took place during the 13th and 14th centuries ended with the loss of between 30 and 40 million lives. It really wasn't a good time to be a soldier
30 and 40 million lives.
Poison. Let's suppose that you happen to be rich during the Middle Ages and able to afford the finest.
Nah, they was poisoning niggas back then. They was really poison, poison his ass. Get him. Poison his shit.
Things in life. Would that have made your chances of survival better? You would definitely have eaten better than the peasants with their bread and pottage. For you, the table would be laden with meats such as veal, venison, or peacock,
good. You hungry as shit
followed
too.
By sugar desserts and fine wine. You would eat your gourmet food from beautifully glazed plates and drink from delicately decorated cups. The problem was that the glazing was made from lead oxide. Yes, it looked lovely and it was practical for cleaning, making
niggas
it
need to bring poisoning back.
Privileged enough to be able
Why don't that many people die from poisoning anymore?
When acidic food was served on glazed plates,
it's just easier to shoot a nigga.
It caused the coating to dissolve and the lead was absorbed into the food. Lead is a poisonous heavy metal which collects in the human body over time. Acute poisoning can attack the nervous system and cause headaches, abdominal pain, and infertility.
Damn.
Chronic poisoning may lead to seizures, coma, and death.
They definitely
because children are still growing, the effects on them can be devastating and affect their ability to learn. Medieval skeletons from cemeteries in more affluent urban areas of Germany and Denmark have shown that people had lead levels well above normal.
Damn.
Lead was also present in stained glass windows, coins, and on roof tiles. Rainwater was often collected from roofs for drinking, and this could have been another source of the poisoning. Bread was the main food staple for the medievals. Often the rye used to make...
Oh yeah, and I know they was stealing bread all throughout that bitch. Imagine the diss songs these days with poisoning. I just poisoned your little homie. That nigga was over here gargling and shit. Nigga foaming at the mouth. I gave him that motherfucking rat shit.
Bread would become infected with a fungus called Claviceps purpurea. This caused an infection in humans which was called St. Anthony's fire. There were many outbreaks throughout the Middle Ages which caused tens of thousands of people to die and millions more to become sick.
You know when them niggas be gargling when they die and shit? That's gay?
What we now know as ergot poisoning caused hallucinations, muscle cramps, nausea, insomnia, and sores. In extreme cases, when left untreated, the blood flow to an infected person's hands and feet is restricted, causing burning pains. Gangrene can set in and fingers, toes, hands, and feet can turn black and drop off. Some historians believe it is ergot poisoning that is responsible for some of the dancing epidemics that occurred between the 14th and 17th centuries. These epidemics involved groups of people, sometimes thousands at a time, dancing erratically in the streets until they collapsed from exhaustion and or injury. Thank you for watching this episode of Medieval Madness. Please subscribe if you enjoy these videos.
I ain't gonna lie, I don't know if I'm surviving it. I don't know if I'm surviving this shit. There's just too many factors. It seems like as soon as you step out, gonna die. It seems like there was too many factors. Like as soon as you step out, you're just gonna die. Silly ass nigga said there was a dancing disease. The fuck they call that now? What is that? Where did that go? So many dumb ways facts. And they didn't even mention like the just outside life, just light what they call them, animals and shit. So many dumb ways. The dancing disease must have been lit. The next video was the IRL one, right?